All right, welcome to the Yancy St Speakeasy. I'm Max, and this is Tracey.
Hey guys, what's going on?
Today we're going to be talking about some comic books, some comic book movies, and comic book TV series. The Speakeasy tends to be a little bit loose, so we may go down a few rabbit holes, especially here on our first episode. But we're going to have some fun, and we're going to see how things shake out. So let's do it.
All right.
So I think the first thing to do would be introduce ourselves a little bit beyond names. What do you think?
I agree.
All right, so I'm Max. I live here in Key West, Florida, and I love comic book movies, especially. They're really what got me into comics more than anything else, I think. And of course, there were some classic cartoons and whatnot, but I think the movies are what really did it for me. But now I have a passion that covers it all.
Yeah. Well, I'm Tracey, and I was born and raised in Pennsylvania for most of my life. I came down here at the beck and call of the idea of becoming a marine biologist, and now I work for the Park Service part-time, and I've been a comic book nerd for most of my life, mostly a Spider-Man booster for as long as I can remember. I had all of his compilations from like the Golden Age, from like the classic Stan Lee, Steve Ditko era, and it just kind of once he hit the silver screen, I was hooked, and I just kept anything Marvel on the title, anything Marvel splashed across it. That was for me, man.
Yeah, Marvel's always been my go-to. I loved DC, Justice League, and some of the original Batman TV series as well. But
oh man,
they were good, but Marvel is where it's at for me, and it always has been. I loved that 90s Spider-Man TV show. I loved that.
Was that the one where Neil Patrick Harris was voicing him?
I think it was.
It was like the CG animated.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
It was animated, and then they had some CG scenes as well. And I think that when I was very young, I saw a little bit of what had come before, but I think they were reruns. But I was a little bit hooked, and then I think I remember sort of starting up when the series that you're talking about, where they would have some scenes of him swinging through the city, and there was a little bit of CG animation.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that hooked me, and I always loved that classic X-Men animated series as well. That was huge for me. I mean, I loved Wolverine. I loved even Cyclops. I mean, the costumes were so bright and so vibrant that it sucked me in from day one, and I would rush home from school to watch every rerun that I could ever see, because I didn't care if I'd seen it before. I wanted it.
You know, I actually thought the X-Men costumes were stupid as hell. I thought the classic blue and yellow costumes were just like I thought they were an eyesore. Like, I remember not explicitly not watching the cartoons when I was younger. It's like, yeah, they look stupid. Why would I do that? And I also remember watching it, and my little, I don't know, what was I, 10? My 10-year-old brain was like, yeah, look at fucking Wolverine over here. He's got freaking adamantium claws, and he just brandishes them around. Like the bad guy shows up, he's like, hey bub, what's going on? And he pulls out his fucking claws, and then the moment the fight starts, he's like, yeah, better put these away, and he's just headbutting, kicking people.
Well, I mean, it was meant for kids. They couldn't go too gory, but
I know.
For me, when I retroactively read a lot of the X-Men comics, I didn't love the early, just straight up blue and yellow costumes where they all looked very, very similar. Mm-hmm. But I did absolutely love where each of them had their own. I mean, even though Cyclops wasn't my favorite character, his costume was really iconic to me, where he had this. It's actually really weird if you think about it, but he had the belt that came up one side, and then about halfway up his chest, it went to the other side of his shoulder as well.
Yeah, I remember that.
So, and I loved the whole intro, the unnecessarily intense guitar. I mean, for whatever age I was at the time, it was beautiful. I got so hyped.
That was such a such a 90s, early 2000s thing. It was I call it butt rock. Oh my god! Well, that you saw that in everything. Any sort of animations back there. It was like oh my god, the Sonic the Hedgehog games and the Sonic Hedgehog animated series. It's like, if you believe, and that was that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Oh my god, this stuff
took me back.
But I actually was I was 100% DC back in the day. Like I thought the Batman animated series was the greatest thing that had ever happened to my 10-year-old brain, and I thought the Justice League was incredible. Batman Beyond was incredible.
Yep, Batman Beyond. I was just gonna say all three of those, Batman, Justice League, and Batman Beyond, I really enjoyed, but I didn't really get hyped about some of the other characters. Like, I never really got hyped about Wonder Woman. I never really got hyped about Superman. I didn't really ever get hyped about... I thought Green Lantern was kind of cool, but I liked his costume more than... I think that was a big part of it.
The Jon Stewart, like, that is always going to be the definitive Green Lantern for me is Jon Stewart. Like, I never think of Hal Jordan. And I don't even want to fucking... Don't get me started on the Ryan Reynolds that bullshit. Oh my god, I'm so like I appreciate so much how they made fun of that in the Deadpool movie, because that movie just, I don't know, it was silly. It was silly, and like the CG. I'm a huge fan of practical effects, and that movie, just like in the costume, really, you have to do the costume CG. Anyway, I'm losing myself. I thought the Justice League animated series was fucking fantastic. I liked how they nerfed Superman. They like really nerfed Superman for that series, so you didn't have this just like ace in the hole. Like, it was like, oh, here comes bad guy, throw Superman at him. Let's do it. Yeah, that's we've had this discussion a couple times about how Superman can ruin a good storyline because he is just all powerful. If a situation calls for it, he'll randomly develop the power to defeat them. I think the best DC storylines involving Superman in the last decade or two have been the ones where he's become a tyrant and like alternate universe stuff. The Injustice series, like the Injustice comic book that went along with that, I loved that. He straight up murdered the Joker and then assumed dominance over the human race because, he knows best. Like those kind of scenarios, the scenarios where he becomes brainwashed or mind controlled by an evil entity or something like that, and then Justice League has to deal with this all powerful being, a friend turning on them. That's the kind of stuff that I like to see Superman in.
Well, you want to know something funny? My first ever exposure to Superman, or probably... I mean, God, who knows what I had seen on commercials or this, that, the other, but I must have been about 3 to 4 years old, and I have this image in my mind that I think that my parents, actually I know, my parents used to watch Lois and Clark. Are you familiar with Lois and Clark?
No.
So basically, it was a TV series based on a live-action TV series. It was kind of like a sitcom based on Superman and Lois Lane, and it was Lois and Clark. And I don't remember it being super good, but I also was probably 4 years old, so I'm sure I didn't really understand a lot of the humor. But I do remember this one scene where I think Lois says something snarky, and then she walks away, and Clark Kent just like lowers his glasses, and he uses his eye beam, and he melts her heels, and she just falls down. So for me, like that, I just loved that moment, and so. That's the Superman that I always wanted to see, was like a little bit silly.
Yeah. And
I remember like little bits and flashes of him, changing his clothes in the phone booth, of course, when there were still phone booths. And so I do remember Superman as being a little bit kind of funny, and I think that one of the things that I struggled to relate to later is that he never really had a good sense of humor, I thought, for someone who was such an intensely powerful character.
At least not in the cinematic universe. I mean, Jesus Christ! Like watch Man of Steel. He doesn't. I think he cracks a smile like one time in the entire fucking movie.
Yeah, and so we can break into the DC EU. And
I know.
The MCU. We can break into.
I know
all
you
that,
wanted to start this podcast as like a Marvel thing, and I've totally taken off.
But no, you know what? It's totally fine because you can't just fanboy all the time. You know what I mean? You got to throw a little shade as well.
Oh, dude, I like to get salty.
So, going back to the movies, I guess we can start before the current franchises. I loved the Marvel movies that were coming out around this time. So I was a little bit too young to see Blade when it first came out, but I did absolutely love the Sam Raimi Spider-Man. I loved it. I saw it in the theaters when I think I must have been in 6th grade, and I fell in love with it from the previews. I absolutely love that movie so much, and it just captured my imagination. And then they came out with a few others around the same time. They came out with Ang Lee's Hulk, which I was a little bit older and a little bit more aware that it was not that great. But they also came out with Daredevil, and I was still just young enough that guys fighting in costumes was still cool to me. So if some of the plot points missed, I either missed that or I forgave it at the time.
Yeah.
So I had this dream that these characters were going to cross paths. So like I really wanted to see Daredevil and Spider-Man in the same movie. I really wanted to see the X-Men cross paths as well. And man, I was 10 years old when the X-Men came out, and my mom took me to that in theaters. And I think that maybe that was a bit of a mistake because it was intense. I mean, I think that I recall having to leave the theater when Senator Kelly just melts into water. It was a little bit too graphic to me as a 10-year-old. I think I went outside and like waited for my mom. But there were some awesome scenes with Wolverine in the beginning, who I had loved because of the series. But I missed the end of the movie because it just got a little bit too dark for me. Yeah. But by the time Spider-Man and Ang Lee's Hulk started to come out, I had this dream that eventually these characters, I was able to watch X-Men all the way through when it had come out on VHS. I watched X2 when it came out, and I wanted to see all these things happen together.
Yeah.
So I never really thought it would happen, and that's why I basically lost my shit when the MCU happened, when they started crossing over. They had me from the get-go.
Dude, listen, I was in my undergrad dorm room when that trailer on Jimmy Kimmel dropped for Captain America: Civil War, and my friend and I, when Spider-Man dropped in and grabbed that fucking shield out of Cap's hands, he and I jumped on the couch, grabbed each other, and screamed like 12-year-old girls. It was the greatest moment that I've ever experienced. I am the biggest Spider-Man geek. He was the reason that I got into superheroes. I know this. I know that's so typical. I know I'm very basic. And that, like, Spider-Man is...
I'm right there with you, man. Spider-Man is what got me into the idea of a superhero. He's such a pure superhero. He's a neighborhood guy that wants to help his community. He's got superpowers. I related so strongly to that character. And
he's a high school student. He's got people problems. He doesn't have, like, oh man, I should probably figure out how to deal with this treaty. There's a war in the in the north, and I need to know how to keep my family safe in these global conflicts and stuff like that. And Spider-Man was just like, man, I hope Mary Jane likes me.
Yeah,
I hope I get an A on that test. Superheroing is hard, and I'm doing bad in school now. Like that kind of stuff. Like that kind of stuff that I could understand. I could relate to. I had all of those. I had all those. Compendiums of like the classic Spider-Man comics. As Spider-Man is what got me into art in the first place. I started tracing Spider-Man out of the old comics that I have, and I would show my parents. My parents were like, oh, that's really great. I was like, oh man, this is great. I can draw superheroes now. And so I would grab I was like, oh, Scorpion. Oh, here's a Vulture.
Yeah. He has a great pantheon of villains too. So So it was one of the things about Spider-Man is that you're not just watching him, you're watching him interact with all these other characters. Yeah. And so I loved Spider-Man because of what he was. He's a superhero. He's a real person who acts heroically because it's the right thing to do, not because it's easy. But then X-Men is what got me into comics. So my experience with Spider-Man didn't guide me to the comics because I was getting what I needed already. I was getting TV series, animated series, I was getting movies. But X-Men got me into comics because their stories were far beyond just being superheroes. They were a little bit more complex, and so I remember getting the Essential X-Men and the Essential Wolverine, and I would read through all of those. Like Wolverine, he wasn't a superhero, at least not to me at that time. He was just a really interesting character. You know what I mean? He was tough, yet
tortured.
Yeah, he was tortured, and he did the right thing, but he was harsh and gruff, and that definitely spoke to me when I was young.
Yeah, he's angsty to say the least.
Exactly.
I'm gonna drag it back to Spider-Man again because that's like he's my bread and butter, man. I can't think of Marvel without immediately. I'll see that giant fucking silver Marvel logo, and I'll see Spider-Man come like swing kicking it down in my brain. Like he just bursts through, kicks the doors down. Spider-Man. Does whatever fucking Spider can.
Yeah.
And I didn't get to watch any of those cartoons when I was younger. I didn't experience live action or cartoon superheroes from the Marvel universe until the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans came out, when I saw Tobey Maguire on the big screen. And I have a much different opinion of some of those movies now, but at the time that was like the greatest thing. My mind was blown. Like, this was my entire childhood coming to this culmination into the silver screen. I walked in there and I was shaking. Like, my parents wouldn't let me go to see Spider-Man, the original Spider-Man movie, until way after it came out, because they wouldn't let me watch those cartoons. They were super strict. Like, they wouldn't let me even watch like Powerpuff Girls or like they wouldn't let me watch Rugrat because Angelica said the word stupid too much, and they're like, we can't let our son be exposed to smut like that.
My mom. Well, here's the thing. I didn't have cable. I only had, ABC Family and Fox. And
I didn't even have those channels.
I didn't have Nickelodeon. I didn't have Cartoon Network. So it wasn't that I wasn't allowed to see it. It's just it wasn't something that was available.
Yeah.
But I did. My mom didn't love me watching Power Rangers because she thought it was. She basically thought it was dumb. Which, retrospect, it's really dumb. Oh. Even the series,
you might get crucified for that, man. They have a strong following.
Well, look, here's the thing. I absolutely adored it as a kid. I mean, I thought about it, drew them.
Oh, yeah.
I created stories. I created more Power Rangers. Like, Power Rangers was my shit. But looking back, it's pure nostalgia.
Yep.
And
it's all about those goggles.
Exactly.
Straight up nostalgia goggles.
So if I go back and I watch some of those, the late 90s Spider-Man cartoons, I mean, they might not entrance me, but at least I kind of see them as being quality stories. Yeah. Whereas if I go back and watch, Power Rangers, I mean, I get feelings of nostalgia, but the plot, it's not good. The acting, it's not good. The action sequences, they're not good. I mean, it's just one of those things.
Well, they were very flashy. They were very anime. They were very over the top, colorful. The kids loved them.
I loved the fact that there were the Zords. I loved that everyone had their own color, that everyone had their own dinosaur theme. Yeah, I mean, that was all so good to me.
Everybody loves that. Like that's the thing. That's the thing. Like, people love to categorize things in their minds. Like, people like to have like,
especially geeks like us.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I like to
sorry.
You like to have the Avatar: The Last Airbender. You got the 4 elements.
Oh my god, I love that.
Dude.
But that's one of those things where when I watched it, primarily as a young adult, and even now going back, it's really quality stories. And yes, it's made for kids, but the story is great. And so
the lessons don't they stick with you. Like they transcend childhood or whatever. Fuck yeah, they are really they're kind of
they're well written.
Yeah, well written, well rounded. Like they are for everybody, and it's very cartoony, and there's some slapstick in it, and
sure,
that makes me groan a little bit now. But holy shit, when I go back and watch that is some quality television.
It really was, and for the voice acting was great. The animation actually was really good,
fantastic,
and the way that they developed 4+ unique cultures with different styles. I'm not just talking about martial arts styles, but I'm talking about
Yeah.
architectural styles. I'm talking about clothing styles.
Relationships with each other. Like they each of the four kingdoms, I guess, tribes or whatever.
Yeah,
like
even some of those tribes had divisions within them that were unique and well thought out.
Yeah, the Southern Water tribe, I just wanted to cry every time I saw them. Like, they're just so sad. There's like a dozen of them.
Yeah.
And they're just like, yeah, we're here now, and we eat fish. And that's about it. I'm gonna make an igloo. Then you go to the Northern Water Tribe, and like they have this rich culture, and they have like these powerful waterbenders, and they have this. Anyway, we're getting like way off track.
It's not comics anymore. All I can say is that I watched all the way through that series from start to finish when I was in college, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. They did a great job. So
I rewatch
kudos
it every.
To you guys.
Yeah, I rewatch it every year at least. That shit's amazing.
But back to comic books and
Yeah.
comic book characters.
Yeah. That's Spider-Man was the epitome of the definition of what a hero was to me.
Likewise.
It was the epitome of what Marvel was to me. I remember my parents went to go see the original Spider-Man movie without me because they didn't think I was emotionally mature enough to go see it.
It was kind of an intense movie. I remember it came out when I was in 6th grade. I know for sure because I remember very specific moments in my life talking about watching that movie. So I know it was in 6th grade, and I think it came out in 2002.
Yeah.
If maybe I'm wrong, maybe.
I think just in terms of intensity, I think Willem Dafoe is intense for anybody under the age of 40.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I mean, it was violent. There was some blood.
Yeah.
There was
adult themes.
Yeah, there was like a realistic possibility of people you care about dying in that movie. So I think that
I think that's important. That's something that people tend to shrug off superhero movies a lot because they're like, oh yeah, it's a person with super ability. They're not going to get rid of the fucking title character, so it's just going to be the main character is going to be posed with a conflict, then they're going to overcome the conflict, they're going to grow from it, and then they're going to succeed and they're going to move on because they make a franchise out of it. And I really love that there have been some more modern storylines where characters have started to face actual stakes.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the thing. I mean, even that Sam Raimi Spider-Man, to me at least, when I was watching that as a kid, I, in my mind, knew Spider-Man wasn't going to die. I mean, I was aware of that on some level, but there were stakes because I mean, do you remember?
Delicious steaks.
Yeah, do you remember when he came after Aunt May? And he dropped Mary Jane off the building. I mean, that was one of those things where I wasn't sure. Maybe he catches Mary Jane and he drops the kid. But the point is that was something that Sam Raimi did really well. Is it didn't feel like fluff. It felt like this guy
everything
is
had a
struggling.
purpose. Everything had a purpose to it. Yeah, I agree. The first two. Bitch as much as you want about Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man. I'll say this, like he was nerdy enough and awkward enough to play Peter Parker. He was not cool enough to be Spider-Man.
I think that's one of those things that's definitely true. That one of the things is about Spider-Man is when he puts on the mask, he's not Peter Parker anymore. No. He's a totally different person. He's got humor. He's got swagger. He's sassy.
Yeah, they list that as. I remember reading a Stan Lee and Steve Ditko kind of a side thing in one of the original comics. They were like, oh, let's list off Spider-Man's powers. He's got web. He can climb. He can stick to walls. He is the fourth. Yeah, there was actually So there was people tell me that Spider-Man. There's a misconception that Spider-Man doesn't actually have super strength or the spider strength, and I've gotten lots of arguments with people about this because literally, in terms of strength, it seems like his superpower is to be able to get the shit beat out of him and keep going. But he is super strong. Like his character does possess super strength, and there is an actual aside in one of the comic books where they list off his superpowers, and they designate Spider-Man as the fourth strongest character in the Marvel Universe at the time, only under the Hulk, Thor, and the Thing. They said that he has the ability to bench press something like 23 tons.
Yeah. I remember I remember being okay with how it was portrayed in the movie because they were trying to keep it at least somewhat realistic, I think. Because it was before a time when you had a character that would exist in a cinematic universe with other characters that were outrageously strong. So to kind of keep the stakes a little bit more real, they gave him super strength, but it wasn't the kind of strength that he had in the comics.
Yeah, it wasn't unbelievable. I know, and I'm fine with that. I agree with that. But yeah, anyway, back to my parents went to see the movie without me, and
how old were you then?
I probably was 10 or 11.
No, I don't. Because you're younger than me.
No, I am younger than you. So I must have been.
I turned 12 in 2002. So when that movie came out,
yeah, so
I was still 11.
I should have been 8 or 7 or 8.
Yeah, you were probably 8. If I was 11, you were probably 8. I guess. So I think you probably, in all reality, were a bit too young.
I don't remember much from when I was 8, but I remember distinctly my parents going to, because they were like, no, you can't see it. And then they went and saw it, which is like, that was betrayal. That was straight betrayal. I was so angry.
I have a moment like that too, straight betrayal, and it's not comics, but it's equally as geeky. So I'm trying to think back when Star Wars Episode 2 came out. That was 2002? Is that right? Or 2003?
3, I think. I don't know.
Okay, so I was 12 years old. And at that...
Like, comment, and subscribe if you want to bitch at us about our timelines.
Yeah, right, yeah. Feel free to let us know that we are way off. But so I was 12 years old, I believe, at this time when this movie would have come out. And I was looking forward to it like you wouldn't believe. I mean, probably it was... Maybe it was similar for you, for listeners. It probably was the same for you. I was so hyped because at 9 years old, Episode 1 was maybe the greatest thing ever. Looking back, I think maybe not so much. But but at 12 years old, I was so hyped. And I did something dumb. I was playing a game of tag, and I decided to jump on top of my uncle's Volvo and run across the hood. At that time in my life, I was not aware that the paint on cars was easily scratched. It just wasn't a reality for me. Nobody ever told me, don't scratch the paint on cars. Plus, my mom had a beater, so it wasn't really something we thought about. But I jumped on top of that hood, I ran across it, and I got punished by not being allowed to go see Star Wars Episode 2 when it first came out.
Shit.
And that was straight betrayal. I didn't cry. I mean, I was a sensitive kid, but I didn't really cry a lot. I straight cried for like an hour in that moment. It was brutality to me.
Yeah. I don't know necessarily that I cried. Like, my parents were like the ultimate authority in my life at that time, so I just kind of, they were just like, we're gonna see this and you're not allowed to, and I was like, oh, like I just had that sort of reaction, and I remember being stuck with the babysitter and sitting in my house at the dinner table, just like pacing or just kind of bouncing in my seat, like, okay, fucking get home and tell me, I need juicy details. And then they came home and I was like, so how was it? And they're like, oh yeah, we really liked it. And I'm like, yeah. Like, oh, tell me about it. And then I was like, how did he get his powers? Like, I already fucking knew how he got his powers. I just want to know what happened in the movie. I want to know how accurate this shit was. I was already like cross-referencing things at that young age, and they were like, oh, so he gets bitten by this genetically altered spider. I was like, And I was like, if I had the capability of like pulling out a notepad at that time and like taking notes, like, yes, just continue. And they were like, and then he gets really sick at first, but then he wakes up in the morning and he's okay, and then he has a 6-pack, and I was like, what? What? And I just remember like grilling them for hours about what happened in the movie.
I absolutely adored that movie. I loved the way that he swung on the webs. There's something so free about the way that he can just sort of fly, He's not flying, but he's flying. And I remember just seeing the way his body moved through the sky, and I wanted that. I wanted it so badly.
That's the nice thing about Spider-Man that I think is a strength in a lot of comic books. Not only comic books, just in any superhero story, or any story with like a person with supernatural abilities. Is presenting them with like they have rules and they have limitations, because that's nobody likes it when you get into a movie and you're presented like they present you with like this series of rules and like physical, like the physics of the universe exists like this, and then at the end somebody breaks the physics. Unless there's like a really good explanation through the plot of why that happened, it's bullshit.
Okay, so that's one of the reasons that Superman was always hard for me, because I think it might have been Superman Returns, but I think it turned me off of Superman because, okay, Superman is nearly all powerful, but he has one weakness: kryptonite. But
a rock.
Guess what? Well, it's okay that it's a rock. That's not the problem. The problem is that for some reason he always gets around. Like in Superman Returns, he literally lifts an island of the only thing that can harm him, and saves the world. So it's like, so I'm all powerful except for one thing, except for if I don't want that to stop.
So nothing matters. So rules don't apply. So like, fuck it. Let's throw the script out the window. They can do whatever. So Spider-Man can shoot rockets out of his fingers. Like that like who cares? Like exactly. Like when you present them with rules, then you create stakes. You create scenarios that people can understand. People can relate to. People can like calculate and stuff like that. People like to. I don't know. Maybe I'm generalizing, but I like it when they present when a world or a universe or a story presents us with a set of rules, and they follow those rules to a T, and they put the character in a situation where their powers might not be enough, so they have to rely on something else, or there's something that maybe the audience didn't think of in the last place, but not if it's something ridiculous like they suddenly develop another power that they didn't suddenly have at the time.
Yeah, exactly. That's one thing that. Yeah, that's one of the things.
Or like somebody else like comes in and saves them, and it's like then like, well, let's name the movie after that guy.
Yeah, I think that one of the things about that's done well. I think one of the things that is done well in Spider-Man, and one of the reasons that I will kind of always see that as my first superhero movie that really meant something, is because it hit all the points. It had a character acting heroically despite the situation that was against him. He went through a hero's journey where he started off one place that I really related to, and that's the idea, and then his eyes were open to a new reality.
Yeah.
He faced some demons. He faced these difficulties, and then he's the one who broke through persistence and passion. And then at the end, it's not like everything's hunky-dory. That's one of the great things about the movie is it's about a girl. He tells you it's about a girl in the first 5 minutes, and he never gets the girl, but he saves him. So it's just, I thought it was
he's
so
selfless.
well done.
Yeah, he's super selfless. He knows that, like, at that point, like, we all know how it ends up. But in that point in the series, he didn't know that he was gonna reap any sort of benefit. Not to itemize or objectify Mary Jane as an individual, but yeah, dude, facing down Willem Dafoe's rendition of the Green Goblin, he was upsetting to me. I remember like seeing that movie for the first time and being like upset inside, like the seeing his transition from a loving father and a business, well, maybe not loving, but
he was. That's the thing, is he was kind of a hard ass, but the truth is I think that children see a lot of reality. So when I watched that the first time, I saw Willem Dafoe's Norman Osborn as being a guy who genuinely cared. I believed that he genuinely cared about his son, even though he was a little hard. I believed that he genuinely cared about Peter Parker. I believed that he cared. And so watching him transition didn't feel like a classic mustache twirling villain. I believed, I even believed, do you remember, I think he was trying to save his business, basically, because I remember this scene when they're having Thanksgiving dinner together.
Yeah.
And it's like, I believe the stakes were high because I believed that Norman Osborn, even in that moment, he's already full-fledged Green Goblin, blowing people up. I still believe that he cared about Harry Osborn. I believe that he cared about Peter Parker. And that was one of the things that was so hard. That's what made the stakes, you know?
Like the Green Goblin half of his persona, like they present it as a genuine mental illness, like, like dissociative identity disorder, and that's kind of how it was in the comics too. When you first met Norman Osborn as a character, and then you related him to the I was gonna say the Joker, the Green Goblin, the Green Goblin character, like it was like it was a dissociative, it was like a fugue state. Like he didn't know that he didn't realize that he had this other part of his personality, which just like it would come on when Peter Parker, spoilers, defeated him in the comics in like 1960 or whatever, for the first time. He regressed back to the moment where he first became the Goblin, and he started like sobbing and panicking and asking like, "Who are you? Where am I? Where's my son? Is my son okay?" Like that was his first thought of his son. Like he is a caring individual. It's a very that's why I think like the very adult themes come into that. He's struggling with a genuine mental illness, and how do you control something like that when you have the physical power to kind of back that illness up?
Yeah, and the physical power, the financial power.
Yeah.
He's a really, really well done character, and that just takes it right back to Spider-Man's amazing pantheon of villains. Like they're not villains of the week. They're real people that you face in your life. Every single one of those guys are characters are people that you and I face growing up,
or people that we've been at some point.
Exactly.
It's like sometimes like it's like from the killing joke philosophy is like, you know, sometimes it only takes one bad day to change you from what you are into something much, much worse. So that's I guess that's kind of indicative of his gallery of villains. He has these they're all very human, and I really appreciated that reading them growing up. Like I could see myself as them, like as we said before, but it's not I think a good villain is somebody that is trying to act for the greater good. I don't think that any individual person actively goes towards evil. Like I don't think anybody.
Yeah. I think that's one of the problems with a lot of attempts at creating villains is that they're trying to make them a caricature of evil so that it's obvious, so that the reader or the viewer knows, oh, this is bad. Yeah. But I think that's one of the things that people end up not relating to, and it ends up, even if someone likes it in a moment, it ends up being very hokey, even just a couple years later, because because people in their own lives, they relate to seeing positive, negative, good, bad, all of the above in both themselves and others. And you know, a hero is not someone who does good all the time and is only good. A hero is someone who sees the difference in choices of right and wrong, knows what doing the wrong choice might bring, even if it's something they want, and still decides to make the right choice anyway. And a villain is someone who sees both the right and wrong choice, but might not necessarily understand the consequences of making the wrong choice, or might not understand that
their intentions are pure, but but how they go about it ends up bringing pain to others, and sometimes that's their true flaw is they lack empathy.
Exactly.
Is they see a greater good, but they don't see how it harms people in the process. Like, it's like nobody can relate to a guy that's like, I want to conquer the world and I'm going to kill the human race, because like what's there to gain from that unless you're a complete psychopath?
Yeah, exactly. So basically, if you want to conquer the world, or if you have a character who wants to conquer the world, you need that character to believe that that's actually a good thing for some reason.
Or there needs to conquer something. There need to conquer the world. You need fucking people to be in the world.
Yeah.
Like, if your plan is just like, unless it's like a story about like an alien race invading or something like that. If you're a human trying to conquer humans, you need to leave some of them alive. You can't just be like, I'm a human and I've decided to destroy humanity. And it's no. I think everybody thinks that at some level we all have a concept of what good is, and I think at a natural level, at a base level, we all wanted to do good, to perform good, and but we might not necessarily know. We might not necessarily go about that in the correct fashion.
Yeah. I think that a good villain is someone, or an interesting or intriguing villain is a character that is presented with a choice that the reader or viewer might see themselves faced with.
Yeah.
And the choice is between two things, and one of them is what the viewer likes to believe that they would eventually choose, and the other choice is one that the viewer knows that they would be tempted to make as well, for whatever reason. So
I'm gonna take it off. I'm gonna take it off comic books for a half a second. I'm gonna say that I'm gonna just go down a rabbit hole for a second. In terms of that, I don't know if you or how many of
let's throw one thing out there real quick. So for those of you or everybody who doesn't know, Tracy and I have literally known each other for 5 days. Wait, so we met on Sunday.
Yeah.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So this is the 6th day of which we are aware of each other's existence. So a lot of this is not just us postulating. We actually do not know what the other person feels about a lot of things.
Yeah, I met him. I just moved to Key West to work and volunteer with the Park Service, and I got invited to a Super Bowl party, and I just fucking met this sexy son of a bitch at this Super Bowl party, and we just like started talking. We just started nerding out about Star Wars, and that was like the basis of our friendship. And then 2 days later, I received a text from, "Hey, you want to do a podcast with me?" And I was like, "Fuck yeah, let's do it."
So it has become a reality. So I guess I work quickly because that's kind of how it worked with my wife as well. We went out and then the rest is kind of history. There's more to it, but not a lot more.
Yeah.
So anyway, so dive into what you were saying a minute ago.
I will just say, except for a couple minor aspects, I thought the original, the Kingsmen, the Secret Service, was a fucking brilliant movie, except for some bullshit at the end because the female agent definitely deserved like 99% of the credit, and also the anal sex joke was in a little bit of bad taste, even though I giggled at it because butt stuff makes me giggle. Because fuck you, I don't care. But the villain, like Samuel L. Jackson's performance as Valentine or whatever his name was, that villain. I'm an environmental biologist. I'm a marine biologist. I subscribe to climate change, as I think should any rational individual.
Let's avoid politics
best we can. Like, comment, and subscribe if you think I'm totally fucking wrong. Anyway, I thought his character really spoke to me at a very intimate level because I don't necessarily disagree with his philosophies. And I think that's a mark of a good villain. Like, if you kind of agree with where they're coming from, he genuinely thought that the what he was doing was right. Like the way to solve the Earth's health problems was to get rid of like a vast majority of the population. The way he went about it, with deciding he was the one that got to like cherry pick who got to survive at the end of that movie. It's bullshit because he like picked all the like the bourgeoisie people and all. He didn't take into account anybody below like the top 1% of the population, stuff like that. that. He was picking royalty and these really rich people. The overpopulation is a massive fucking problem, and that's huge issue when it comes to the pollution and excess of greenhouse gas and stuff. Okay, I'm not gonna get super environmental on you and scientific, but I loved his reasoning.
That's the thing. It's not necessarily about the politics. It's just about the idea that they're a relatable person, and I think that is one of the reasons that Marvel's been kind of. They've been pointed at as having not good villains, because you can really go back and kind of use this as a litmus test. Is this character at all relatable? So you go back to Iron Man 1, very fun movie, got a lot of people invested in this Marvel Cinematic Universe, me definitely being one of them.
Oh, absolutely.
But I think you can say, okay, Obadiah Stane, is he someone who any of us relate to? No, he's ridiculously wealthy, and he's a complete backstabber. He's aware of it, and he doesn't care. So, yes, he's clearly a bad person, but do you know anybody like that? Do you ever wonder, maybe I should, have my friend fired so that I can take his position at work? You know what I mean? Maybe there are people like that out there, but I don't think the average one of us... I don't think our mind goes there for the most part.
I wish I had a beard to stroke.
Yes, I want everyone to know that I am stroking my beard very hard.
Menacingly.
Yes, while I'm talking about getting my friends fired, I'm giving it a good deep stroke.
I'm afraid.
So and I think you can kind of look at that for some of the others, like for some of the other movies as well. But anyway, the point is, you need a good hero who you can relate to, but you also need a good villain who you can relate to. And my favorite comics are that. And I think that I don't want to... I want to do a preliminary spoiler warning, but I'm not really going to go deep into it. But I was just talking with Tracy before we started the podcast about the Infinity Gauntlet, a line in the Infinity Gauntlet series by Jim Starlin in Marvel Comics from the 90s. And I won't get into plot points, but I can say that even though it's this cosmic, huge implication story, they actually make both the heroes, which really in that story primarily are Doctor Strange and Adam Warlock and Silver Surfer, more than anything else, they somehow make those magical cosmic characters relatable, and they make Thanos relatable as well. So I think that I'm really, really hoping for that in Infinity War, because we're all geeking out about how all these characters are coming together in this epic movie, but I also really hope they do a good job of making this villain relatable, because they gave him such a great reason for doing what he's doing in the comic, and I'm just hoping that I don't need them to, mimic it exactly, but I hope that they can carry that off as well. They can give you a reason for kind of being like, okay, yeah, I did actually feel like that at one point in my life, that I would do anything for this, and so
I've never read the fucking comic, so I don't know what he's talking about. So I also hope that he has a good reason, because I agree that the Marvel movies tend to have a lack of a believable or relatable bad guys. But I do think that's not. I think it's not active. Like they're like, yeah, fuck our villains. I think it's more like boost our heroes. I really think it's because they're promoting having relatable, likable heroes over having a especially with the origin stories. The origin story.
I agree, but
villains.
I think that one of the reasons that people loved Avengers so much is
Loki.
Sure, yes, but
Loki.
Sure, there's a lot of all these heroes are coming together, and it's that first fanboy moment of what I was just talking about before. I wanted X-Men and Daredevil and Spider-Man and Hulk to all be in the same movie. Yeah. I did at that time, but that's not the only reason that I loved Avengers. It was character beats. It was a villain who we could relate to. Like, in the end, Loki is not a person who does evil because he enjoys evil. He's basically a hurt teenager acting out, and I think so many people relate to that. That's so.
It's a perfect description.
Yeah, he's not. He doesn't want to.
He's an angsty man child.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is, and that one they picked a great actor to play him.
Oh, yeah.
Because he looks like that. You know what I mean? He looks angsty. You know, his persona is like a little bit bitter and a little bit like irritable. So he's not a bad guy.
Yeah.
But when you compare him to the heroes, he is. So that's what I love about that movie is yes, all of the fan service, which they did such a wonderful job with. Not to mention I've always loved Joss Whedon since long before that. But
oh, dude, Joss Whedon. What happened to Firefly, man?
I don't know.
I mean,
I think that in any nerd podcast, whether it's about comics or no matter what, I think we all have to do one of those. Take a moment for Firefly because
I'm physically taking my hat off. He can vouch for me.
Yes, the hat's off. I don't have one, but I will bow my head.
Adore that series
in remembrance.
I'm reading. They're making a comic book series. I've read the first.
Are they? I knew they put one out. Put some comics out before.
I read the first two. I read the first two volumes. They're fantastic. They got me a little weepy, but
So here's a funny little aside, but it's kind of relatable because Joss Whedon does comics with a lot of his characters, including the one I'm about to talk about. But so I came to experience Firefly when I was in high school, and it was so perfect for me. I loved everything about it.
Space Cowboys.
Space Cowboys in such a down to earth way. It's such an. They're so opposite. Down to earth space odyssey. Cowboys in space. Like they contradict each other, but
they're always
done so well.
Yeah, exactly. They're always sort of down on their luck. They're always looking for the next big gig, and it almost always falls through.
But they're such good people. Goddamn, Jamestown! What a great episode of television. It doesn't really get any better than that.
No, it doesn't.
And so I loved that show.
Christ.
And then I watched that in high school, and then in my first year of college, I did not fit in. I struggled really hard. I didn't make friends. I was very, very shy. I was shy in high school, but after 12 years in the same town, eventually you do make some friends. So I had some friends in high school. When I got to college, I was shy. I felt so alone. That's where I found my passion for movies and television and serialized television, where you could get to know these characters and you could hang out with them episode after episode or every week or however it was. And I just randomly on Hulu started watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Dude, it's a great show.
It is, but guess what? At the time, I was like, "Oh, it's gonna be super cheesy." But I don't know what prompted me.
It is cheesy.
But I just started
It's cheesy,
watching it.
but it's so lovable.
It is, and I watched the first. I don't even know. I think I was a full 2 seasons of 22 episodes in before I realized that this show was made by Joss Whedon, and my mind was blown. And so from that moment, I've loved pretty much everything he's ever done. And when I heard that he was going to do Avengers, I was psyched, and I think that he just did such a great job. So thank you for that. Thank you for everything you put out, Joss Whedon.
Yeah, hell yeah, he's my bro. And if you've ever played Goat Simulator, there is a character model that looks exactly fucking like him. that game is derpy as hell. Anyway.
So, where were we? You're going to have to forgive us. This is our first run through, and this is, except for a few texting moments, this is literally the third conversation we've ever had, which is on record. So,
actually, yeah.
So, I guess let's talk a little bit about what we want to do going forward with this podcast. Going forward, we're going to try and do, some news about comic books. We're going to do news about comic book movies, both DC and Marvel, and beyond as well.
We have plans to rewatch a bunch of our childhood favorites and not so favorites.
We are gonna watch Daredevil. We're gonna watch Elektra.
Oh Christ!
We're gonna watch Ang Lee's Hulk.
Please no.
Yes, we are.
Fuck.
We're gonna watch the Blade trilogy. we're gonna do it all, and it's gonna be beautiful.
I have yet to see the was it 2016 or 15 that the new Fantastic Four?
It was 2015.
Oh.
Neither of us have actually seen.
I only know I've heard absolute garbage things about it, so I'm just my expectations are super low. So I'm just like I'm going into it with with no expectations. So maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised. I don't know.
With this one, maybe we'll even do a commentary. We'll basically do a commentary.
Oh.
So we I don't know how we'll work it, but I think that would be great because I don't know if maybe people will wanna watch along. I don't know, but I think that would be great. So to hear two comic book nerds first time viewing of the Fan-Fourtastic. I think that would be great.
Another pet project that I've been positing is doing a Let's Play channel of cavalcade of shit. Sort of let's play the worst that each console had to offer. Because I am an avid video game nerd, and he kind of. Max kind of got out of it for a little while because he has a wife.
I grew up a little bit, and I had to say goodbye to some of my favorite pastimes. I have to invest very specific time frames into the things that I love the most. So that is definitely going to be some TV, some movies, but video games is one of those things which I've always loved, but based on my work schedule, I've had to kind of stop. So if we can do this, then I think it'll be great because I'm terrible at video games.
It's gonna be great.
I was never particularly good, but now I'm bad.
I'm straight up
bad. I'm bad at Lego Marvel. I'm bad.
Get ready for some. I'm in the market for a new. I had a Wii and it shit the bed on me. I'm in the market for a new one. So get ready for just some of the worst games. We're just gonna have the jankiest motion controls. 2018. February 2018. Get ready for Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban for GameCube.
Hell yeah!
I'm banking for it. It's a cult classic for one person, and that person is me.
I am in the Harry Potter mode because my wife, being from a country that is not America, never happened to be inducted into the Harry Potter world, and she loves.
What a shame.
I know, right? But here's the beautiful thing: I get to be the Harry Potter savior. I have watched now all 8 Harry Potter movies in a row.
Lucky bastard.
Yeah, I know, and I get to do it without feeling like too nerdy because I'm offering the world a service.
There's such a Harry Potter is a fucking service to life, the universe, and everything. There is introducing somebody to a franchise or to a series that you know and love is such a double-edged sword because, at least for me, because I get way too fucking passionate about things.
Oh, me too.
And when I introduce somebody to a new thing, particularly movies, I'm the guy that okay, so we're gonna sit down and watch this, and I will sit down and I will stare at their face.
Yes, I want them to enjoy it the way I do.
I want to drink in every fucking reaction. Like, oh, is that oh shit, Voldemort's head's coming out of the back of that dude's head. What the fuck?
Yeah,
I'm that guy. I'm gonna eat that shit up.
So when I watch a movie that I've already seen with somebody else, my focus is barely even on the movie. It's 100% on their level of enjoyment of every single moment. It's funny because I'm the exact same way.
I hate being like that because I also want to enjoy the movie and I want to let them have their own reactions.
Yes,
but I always get that puppy dog expectancy.
Yep. So I wanted to introduce my wife to some of my passions, which are sci-fi, fantasy, action to some degree, but I would rather watch a sci-fi or fantasy movie with little to no action than an action movie with very little plot or very little character development. So action to me is fun, but it's not the most important part. So I've really been trying to show her some of my favorite fantasy and sci-fi movies, TV shows, and books and stuff. But I really tried to get her into Marvel. I tried so hard, and it just didn't work. It just didn't work. So she's had moments here or there where she's liked a movie, but for me, I showed her. I wanted to do like a marathon of the Marvel movies, and Iron Man. She's like, okay, that was fun. I'm like, okay, so ready for the Incredible Hulk? And she's like, yeah.
I see.
And 2 days later, I'm like, Iron Man 2, and she's like, and I lost her along the way. She just couldn't hang. So Harry Potter, I'm pumped that she's into it.
I've had issues. I've actually never getting past girlfriends into Marvel. I've never really had an issue with. They all eat up because they're super relatable. Like this meme centered culture and this like reaction centered culture. I don't know. People eat up how relatable and how fun the heroes are. It's Star Wars that I have a hard time getting people.
Well, my wife loves Star Wars.
Getting people into.
And she loves Star Wars, and she probably would love Marvel. But I think it's my own damn fault. I think I overdid it. I think I tried to force feed it, and I think I think that
It's difficult, man. There's a line you have to walk.
Yeah, it's true. I think that I set my goal a little bit too high, or I set a little too quickly. I maybe is the right word.
Oversaturation, inundation with media is definitely an issue.
So here's the thing. I think that she would have loved it, but I think that not everyone can binge watch a 12 episode TV show in a day, which I totally can do and will enjoy.
Uh-huh.
And she's not that type. I think she gets restless, and I never tried to make her watch 14 hours of TV at once. But I think that I
I actually lately. I love doing that, and lately I've been having an issue with it because my brain demands multiple forms of stimulation. So I'm a terrible multitasker. Like I can't. I will half absorb whatever I'm doing. So my biggest thing is I will draw while I put something on. So
I do the same thing, but I write.
Yeah.
And so then I start to lose track of what's happening in the show or the movie or whatever it is.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like it just becomes background noise. It becomes like I have a friend in the other room that's talking while I do my thing, and that's why I have to like really focus on keeping myself to. I stick to stuff that I know. I like when I draw. I put on superhero movies. I put on The Office. I put on 30 Rock. I put on stuff like that. Like I'm sort of not mindless, because those shows definitely aren't mindless. They're
but when you've seen them enough times, they become mindless.
Yeah,
to
exactly.
But so just I know this is outside of comics, but I just started watching Altered Carbon, and I'm
heard so much about that.
I'm 3 episodes deep, and I had to work this morning, and I was watching it last night, and I had to stop myself. I was my finger on my iPad was on that episode 4 button, and I was like, no, Max, don't do that to yourself. Don't do it. Stop it. So I turned it off. But it was hard because when I wait to, I really try and wait to like say how much I like something until I've seen it at least through the first season, because the arc is a really important part of it.
Right.
But they have definitely captivated me in that one. I want to know.
That show, I still haven't watched Black Mirror.
Neither have I.
And people tell me that show, like, I would absolutely adore it. So that one and Altered Carbon, I've heard Altered Carbon is absolutely fantastic.
The visuals themselves are amazing. Yeah. I mean, I would watch this again because, first of all, it's a murder mystery, and so I want to see all the things that I missed once I go back through it again. But I mean, just for the plain visuals, it's so well done.
Yeah, I think just one last thought before maybe wrapping things up.
Yeah, we probably should. I'm not sure how long we've run now exactly,
But 1924 seconds.
I don't think so.
Is that seconds? I don't know.
No, because okay. So I just want to apologize for the fact that you all have to listen and to us discussing exactly how our recording system works, but right now we don't know exactly how long we've been recording. My guess is it's been for maybe close to an hour and a half. So we should probably wrap things up.
Yeah, I have
soon.
little to no experience with audio visual. I'm not a computer person. He's been taking care of all this stuff. I draw things and think of witty jokes and occasionally swear.
Well, I cannot claim to be a computer whiz by any means, but I do kind of just figure things out as I need to when it comes to sort of anything in life. So all of you who are listening with us, please bear with us for any technical difficulties. Please bear with us.
We love all of you.
We do. We love you very much. I mean, I don't know how many people are listening to this first one, but no matter how many there are, we love you a lot. And if you're only one or two people, all our love is condensed into you.
Oh,
so
shit,
you're very
that's like
special.
too much. I don't think they can handle that kind of that level of condensed.
Well, it's there now. And
it might destroy them, guys. Get away while you can. There's too much. You can't handle the truth.
So I guess we're gonna wrap it up, and I think next week when we come back, we're going to have perhaps a little bit more structure to it.
I want to discuss the fucking Venom trailer.
Yeah.
I want to talk about maybe like by the time that we record our next thing, we'll have seen Black Panther.
Oh, well, that's the thing. That comes out Friday, and that's supposed to be our recording day, so we might have to...
A late fucking recording night.
Yeah, that's going to totally depend on how many hours I have to work on Saturday. So if I have to work 12, 13 Saturday, maybe no, but if I only have to do like a 6-hour day on Saturday, then I think we might do some late night recording.
And I'm, like, again, I said I'm free all day Saturday because my volunteer status at the moment has me not working on Fridays.
So if anybody wants to hang out with Tracy, he is free all day on Saturday.
Oh, shit. My number is 555. Have some ham.
All right.
Delicious ham. It's hickory smoked. It's hickory smoked.
Applewood's my preference. But anyway, thank you all for listening, and have a wonderful week. Enjoy all your comic book media, and then come back and talk about it with us.